How are you?
Hello, Nathan.
You good?
Good, yeah.
Check us out now. Being big boys and recording a couple of weeks ahead in advance and still showing up the next week.
We're brilliant.
I'm proud of us.
Yeah. I actually thought when you rang earlier, I was like,
It was the cancel.
this is the cancel call.
I knew that, but by how you answered, you're like, well, lay it on me. What's the excuse this time?
Because I'll tell you, I'm ready for it. I'm ready to accept it without question.
I have a lot on at the minute.
But look, we didn't do it. We didn't take that opportunity. We presented ourselves.
Fair play. I was close, like, I'll be honest.
Yeah, I could hear it in your voice, and I was just like,
you don't want to do it.
Do I push this? Then thus revealing my own hand.
I'm not saying that I don't want to do it. I'm just saying if you don't want to do it, it's okay. Do you want? You don't sound like you want to do it. But here we are. Here we are. There's so much going on in the world. Like, we gotta. People need to hear what we think 4 weeks later.
For example, it's raining.
Men. Hallelujah. I'm so happy it's raining.
Yeah.
I'm fucking delighted. It started raining yesterday and I was just like, natural, like, order has been restored.
I was like, thank fuck. I don't have to drink the head of myself anymore.
Yeah, it's all well and good kind of celebrating a sunny day when you think it's only going to last 2 or 3 days.
Well, the last 10 days.
When it lasts 3, what was it, 2-3 weeks?
Yeah, about that.
Felt for fucking ever, like, yeah.
Hopefully it comes back though. It was nice. Although when it decided to rain, then it was...
It fairly,
yeah, hasn't stopped.
I guess that's what happens when
that's
there's all that pressure building up.
That's weather for you.
That's weather, I know to borrow with the sport. But yeah, that's the crack. I'm just really glad. I hate the heat so much. My skin is still like fucking undecided if it's done fucking
being prickly,
peeling and everything. Like,
I don't mind it. I like it, but things grind to a halt.
Yeah. Mick of old now was a big fan of sacking a few days off for a bit of sunshine, like.
But not this Mick. I'm very responsible now.
Well, I would more say you just ran out of steam.
Yeah. Not this Mick. He's 34 now. He just can't do it anymore.
You gave it a good go. But yeah, how's your week been? You said you seem to be very busy.
It was good. My parents were up for a couple of days.
Oh yeah,
on their holidays to
go?
Belfast from Tyrone. It was grand. I was good crack.
Did they stay with you or did they get a hotel?
Stayed with my brother and then came over for a night and had dinner. So my dad struggles with the concept of veganism in general, but we said we'll cook some. They're very safe eaters, my parents.
Okay.
So let's not try and push the boat out here. We'll just make spuds and carrots and like we kind of vegan. They're supposed to be like chicken Kievs, but they're like vegan kind of Kievs with garlic butter and stuff. Dad sat down anyway. And the first thing he said was, "The fuck are these wee orange things on the plate?" It's like, "Do you mean carrots?" It's like, "Oh, aye." So I just didn't recognize the shape of the.
He's got trust issues now.
Yeah, he's just so used to his whole life. Carrots have been just chopped into little circles,
Yeah. How did you chop them?
Long ways and roasted with a bit of...
Oh, nice. So he didn't recognize a fully intact sort of a shape of a carrot?
I think his
back was up.
His back was up. He was like, "What the fuck am I? I'm not putting anything in my mouth until I know for certain." But he didn't question the Kiev. He just hoofed the whole dinner in them.
And what did he think of the Kiev?
And I was like, "What do you think of the Kiev?" And he was like, "Oh, I was lovely." And I was like... It's not chicken. He was like, I kind of thought that, and then Orla was like, Orla was like, it's kind of what was it? He says, and Orla was like, it's like soy kind of protein. Dad just looked at us and he just goes, "I think I'm going to be sick."
Oh man!
But he told me the funniest fucking story. My dad's a rare. They're both rare. My parents are both rare. They're wild relaxed. Like they're nothing really phases them. They don't really do. They don't do much, and they're easily pleased. But he was telling us a couple of years ago he was over visiting my uncle Kieran, who's lived in London his whole life, and they were overstaying for a few days, and they went to the Natural History Museum, and my dad was like, "Jesus, Mick, I swear to fuck, hey, I had to leave. I was having a panic attack. I had to leave. I just had to get out of there." And I was like, "Jesus, Dad, why? what was causing? Was it too busy or something? Was it just really overwhelming? He was like, Mick, I was so fucking bored that I thought I was going to have a panic attack. And he was like, he describes it. He was like, I had to just get out, and I ran out of the National History Museum, just put my head in my hand, and said, I can't take a second more of that.
Had they just visited like this trip, you mean, or was he just recounting a time that he had visited it?
No, it was a Natural History Museum when he was in London. This was
right.
Like he was telling, because he had said he led with that he'd had a panic attack at the Natural History Museum, but it then subsequently revealed that he had it because he was that bored.
A lot of folks now wouldn't be a fan of having time to figure out what's going on up in between the eyes. Like,
he was like, fucking stones and sticks. It's like, what the fuck are they doing in the museum? Load of stones, sure, they all look the same. I don't care if they're a couple 100 years old. That's why I went. I was getting on. Like,
I do think I watched it just came like recommended in my YouTube feed the other day it was called Walter's World, and it's called The Don'ts of Traveling.
Let's hear some.
And
no doubt I've probably done them all.
But it was the don'ts of traveling when in Ireland.
Right.
And so of course I was very keen to. I feel like if you ever come across a channel like that, but like before you rely on it for, like, you know, if you're planning like a trip to France or something, and you want to check
comments.
No. If you want to check out how good Walter's World is, right, for instance, it's a good idea to check out what they think of where you live.
Yeah, makes sense.
So then you can be like, you know,
as a frame of reference,
saying Dublin is safe.
Yeah,
we all know you'll die. So, and most of it was like pretty. The first one was
don't say top of the morning.
Well, no, actually, it was like there was a couple of like random like pictures with captions, like as he was talking. One of them was like of leprechauns. It was like, these are the only leprechauns you'll see. I was like, glad he got that out of the way.
Yeah.
Many a day, many a night wasted explaining to an American, but
many a day, many a night wasted out on a hunt.
Yeah, looking for the bastards.
Only to find out that it was just made up by Americans.
You can't get to the end of a rainbow. It's terrible.
Sickening.
But
fucking sick of it.
He said he was like, don't make sure you understand that Ireland isn't just Dublin. I was like, that wouldn't have even occurred to me, like,
no,
that there was folks who didn't know that, like why would you think if it
obviously doesn't mean it literally. Why
would we have a capital city if there was no other cities? The whole place would just be called Dublin. Why would we call it Ireland? Stupid Walter. But then he was just like, he was on about like driving on the other side of the road. It did occur to me. He was like, if you're planning on renting an automatic car, you're fucked. Basically, like, and I was thinking, like, when I went to America and had to rent an automatic, I feel like it's much easier to be like, I can figure that out. It's just like a go-kart version of what I do. You know what I mean? But if you have to like sit into a manual when you've never had to drive one, like, you must spot them coming out of fucking Dublin airport all the time. Just like,
I fucking love driving with a manual.
Yeah. I genuinely don't understand. Now I have a couple of friends that have, like, after years of driving manuals, have just gone to automatic cars, especially lads that would, you know, do like a lot of driving for like gigging and stuff like that. Like, but I feel like in my head that feels like they've served their time. Yeah, you know what I mean. At least they can do both. Yeah. But it's staggering to me, the idea. Like, I have a cousin in America who's just like I remember chatting with him once, and he was on about like some car that he was going to buy. And he's like, it's stick shift. I was like, okay. So was my Renault Megane. You know what I mean? At the time, I was just like, that's not impressive to me at all. Like, you know what I mean? Like, or like he was on about like when he's in the army, like all the vehicles are fucking manual. I was like, ooh,
I can join the army.
Ooh, is that all it takes? But yeah, but I suppose he has the I know what to do when people start shooting guns at me thing, which he's always holding over my head. But
I've told you, just you cower down into a fetal position and scream for help.
And you just say that they're over there.
Yeah,
rat out your teammates.
Yeah, scream for mercy and say that you're.
She wouldn't eat a hold of one of me. I don't know what you do.
Sorry, what war is this?
I don't know. But he was talking about like fucking driving on the other side of the road and stuff as well, and like one was really funny. It was like, you know, there's lots of lovely sights to see in Ireland, and if you're driving around and you feel like pulling in, like make sure that you don't just like pull in randomly, like
on top of a family.
on a corner.
Yeah.
He was just like specifically, he was like, don't pull in on a corner. I was like, who would do that? Like, who needs to be like, oh, oh, that is dangerous.
That's what I've been doing.
We
wrong.
don't have corners in America. Never seen one. Where's the road going? I can't see. I can't see. Like, what the fuck? But
Also, they're going to have more corners than us because of the grid system. They should be warning them about the gradual bends.
it's this is what he was getting at. You know, the gradual bends. Like, but then.
Oh, right. I actually thought it meant like at a junction.
Yeah,
now I know what you mean.
Yeah, just going straight. But we need to go over there. Why isn't the road straight there? But like, yeah, it was just like, some of it was just so fucking bizarre. Like, it was just like the kind of things you're just like, what are you fucking talking about? Like, or they were on about like, one of them was like, he was like, don't drink and drive. They really don't like it there. as if to be like, where are you allowed to do that?
As opposed to Scotland, where apparently it's fine.
Yeah. It was just like, where have you been? That's like, it's acceptable. He was like, no, they're really strict. Like,
To be fair, I would say in some very rural, remote places that probably don't see much tourism, I'd say there's a fair bit of drink driving going on in rural fucking Kerry.
But it's not because it's legal. It's because locals have probably
because the
worked.
pub is miles away.
Yeah, we're meant to get there. But it's meant to, it's like, it's people have made a judgment call to be like, I've never seen guards on this road before, you know what I mean? But it's not that it's okay. It's just they're taking a chance successfully, regularly. But if they got caught, they'd be arrested. Like, I mean, that's like which I assume is the case everywhere. I do hear that the restriction in like Poland or something is like, or like certain parts of Eastern Europe, you can have like 2 or 3.
Is it? I think it might be lax enough in America as well in certain states. Not
maybe.
It's not even that it's lax; that people are lax towards the
law. It's like the law is lax.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just like, just thought that was really funny. It was just like, of course.
Did he mention the North at all?
He did say if you have an intention of traveling around the entire island, he's like, you're going to need pounds and euros, but he didn't say why.
You'll find out.
yeah. Which was interesting. Like, I thought that was really funny. But yeah, and then like it was just really funny. Like, and then I went down to like another that like sent me to like another more recent video that Vice did there about a week or two ago about Belfast and the tensions at the minute and all this kind of stuff.
Vice did one, right?
Yeah.
How was that?
And it was like,
probably
it was really
insufferable.
It's really funny. Like, do you ever like? It reminds me of, I was listening to a podcast just on the way actually here. NPR have a new series called On Our Watch, which is about like, so basically, long story short, they've recently passed a law in like California, I think, where folks now have access to full records of internal investigations done by police on police. So when there's like a complaint made against a policeman, or when they murder people, you know, like if someone gets killed, like if
where is this? Sorry,
this is an NPR
right
podcast. But like, so they started with like the cops version, and so like this episode was like
that sounds like it would just fill me with rage.
Well, yeah, I mean, it does. It's interesting though, like, but it's just interesting to hear the stories, like, but like, so the one that I was listening on the way, it was about like a cop basically working in like, not like the DMV, but like it was like a kind of a specific like highway patrol, sort of a thing. And I don't know if it's like folks getting tickets for like having taillights out and stuff.
Realize I'm slinking real low in my chair by the end of the
yeah. But and this guy basically like over 150 women just like going like, well, I can just get rid of that ticket if you want to go. Do we get a hotel room, like, and like 150 times. And this is the kind of behavior that. But his version of it.
Tell me, was he paying for the hotel rooms?
Well, this is important. It never got that far, to be fair, now with a lot of them. But like, it just,
not that makes it any better. I just want to know.
Glaze over.
I want to know how much money that the transaction would save them.
Yeah.
As opposed to the cost of a ticket to the cost of a hotel room plus spending the night there with a cop.
Exactly.
Doesn't seem worth it.
It doesn't really, no. And that's probably the only reason after working out the logistics of it that they all said no. But it just doesn't make mathematical sense.
Yeah,
I'll take the ticket. It's okay.
Can you come back to me with a better offer?
Yeah. Maybe like a 2-for-1. Is there like a pool in this?
Is there a
hotel?
spa? Yeah.
But it starts with the cops interview, and he's just like,
women love me.
Literally,
Really?
he's just like, most of these women have asked me for my number, and like they, whatever, and he's like, it's all completely consensual, and then like like a hard cut to like his investigating officer that is investigating the thing, like phoning all these women, and they're like, oh, just like found my number on a system and started sending me dick pics and fucking and whatever, and like it's just. So, sorry, this is a very roundabout way of getting back to the device thing that I was saying, but like, it's interesting to hear when somebody is given the initial opportunity to explain, and you're like, oh, that sounds reasonable.
Give him enough rope, sort of job.
It's like, that sounds reasonable, that's okay. It's just celebrating their culture, whatever it is. Not the copy, that's not his culture. I'm mixing my metaphors here now. But so the Vice one was like, they'd followed this family, presumably in Belfast somewhere, and it was like a family that had like 2 or 3 young boys, and they were all in the bands, and like it must have been the one
marching bands. We should
for
the international
marching bands, like loyalist bands for like the 12th of July parades. But I'm sure like the young fellas are just like fucking 7 and 10 or something, like they don't know what the fuck's going on. They're grand, like, but they're just practicing their fucking rudiments on these drum pads and all this kind of stuff, whatever. It's cool, but like, and so they talk for about 5 minutes maybe to this couple about like why it's important, and like, tensions are raising, and what are your concerns, and they're like, this is just like, it's a family thing, it's just our culture and all this kind of stuff. And then it cuts to like I think it's like a Sinn Féin representative for the area then, and like the first shot of him is like pointing to a glass broken window, because there was lads on top of the bonfire flicking golf balls off from the top just into the area. He was like, well, they've done this, and then and like, this is crap. And then they go back and they're like, yeah, a couple of people get a bit out of hand. It gets a bit hairy sometimes, but that's
know what families are like.
Yeah.
Some of them are cunts.
And then he's like and then they're like, this is just like a family thing. It's all cool. Like, it's about our culture and celebrating, and, like, people are welcome and all this kind of stuff. And then like, and this is all stuff that we know. Obviously, it's just funny to watch like an American documentary crew put it together, And there's like, then they cut to like when they're just about to be lit, and it's like fucking tags, rats, and fucking pictures of like fucking Sinn Féin fucking election posters like all up the top, with like fucking mustaches drawn on Mary Lou and fucking whatever, and they're like, it's all tricolours all over it, and then like your man standing, the guy's like standing in front of it, and it's like on fire behind him, and he's like, and what about all the kind of stuff where it seems like he's are really rude towards like the other part of the society? And he's just like, yeah, some of it gets away from us, like it's just like like to try and explain it to someone who's not from, and they're just, you can see they're just kind of going, like it's so funny, like
all the Klansmen like going, it just kind of, some of us just get out of hand, but are you really going to tarnish us all? You know, I haven't hung anyone from a tree.
I just love crosses. I think they look cool when they're on fire. What's the problem with that? Doesn't it look cool? It's a big flaming cross.
That doesn't look cool.
That's class. But like, yeah, it's amazing then, like how it always, of course, always comes down to like whenever these obvious kind of contradictions with like the kind of version they're being sold, and like, yeah, but what about this shit where you're clearly aiming your aggression at another part of the community or whatever, and like like, if you listen to Nolan long enough, you'll hear all this stuff as well. But it's like, anytime anybody's confronted with that, it's like, yeah, but they do it too. Mm-hmm. And it's like, no one is, it doesn't seem to have either occurred to or doesn't appeal to either side to be like, to have the moral high ground. They're just like, no, this means we're allowed to do that. We love burning each other's flags, and as long as they keep doing it, we get to keep doing it.
It's mutually beneficial.
No one ever, like, it always strikes me as if, like, to be like, well, if you want people to respect your one more, why don't you stop doing it so that they're the only ones that do it? And then you could be like, well, we don't do that.
Imagine how hard you could lord it up.
Yeah, exactly. You'd actually, like, let's make an appeal that may actually be appealing to let's speak in your language. You'll win. And people will be able to see who the worst ones are. And really, at the end of the day, isn't that all that you want?
To show that you're the good one.
You're the good guys and they're the baddies. So if you all stop.
Solved. Done. The man from Cork has done it again.
And they might go, well, what if they stop as well? And you're like, that's a tough one.
Oh, shit.
Oh, it looks like
Then you're going to have to do something.
everyone's being real peaceful this year.
You're going to have to up the pace again.
Yeah. So they might like bring round like a nice basket to the other ones. I love the idea of like opposing paramilitary organizations just
Gift baskets?
getting gift baskets from the others and like, these fucking loyalist cunts are fucking trying to tempt us with chocolate. Get 10 times more chocolate, please.
The loyalists, they've sent over an Easter Rising bouquet. We can't let them do this. We have to send over one for the centenary.
Somebody needs to get some really nice flowers to spell out the numbers 1066. Has anybody got these? We must have. We've got banner guys. Telling me we don't have any flower guys? You serious? Jesus Christ. Yeah, and then they just panic right at the end of their tether, and they just send them a note that says we respect you, and they're like,
So how did it resolve? How did the Vice documentary?
It just kind of ends the way most Vice documentaries do, with the reporter going,
what the fuck is going on?
and just a flaming bonfire behind him. He's like, pure peaceful though.
Do you remember when Ross Kemp was over for like?
I never saw it. Was it good?
He was real fucking in a war zone here. Like,
Just people in fucking B&M barracks behind him. Oh, Ross Kemp. Bouchy Ross.
or no, what do you call the other Kemp? Is it Martin Kemp? Spandau Ballet.
Yes.
Spandau Ballet came up in conversation the other night, and someone said Martin Kemp, and Arlo was like, "Is that Ross Kemp's brother?" And then she started laughing. You've been thinking about Phil Mitchell. Phil Mitchell and Spandau Ballet.
But yeah, no, it's been it's a funny rabbit hole to go down to try and find other people's videos from extraneous sources about like Ireland.
Yeah, explained. What Northern Ireland is explained in 5 minutes.
Yeah. Those are fucking class. Whenever like you see it from the point of view of someone who's just been given a brief overview for about.
It sounds like what I sound like when I'm in the pub in America and somebody asks me. I'm like,
basically.
Well, you're about to get very ill-informed.
How would you explain it?
See, the trouble for me is where to start.
Yes, that is true. Cast your minds back 800 years ago. It was a warm January evening. Yeah, I suppose where do you start? Like, I guess it's like, how do you describe it without, like, you know, because if you were like a fly on the wall, you don't want anyone to be able to say, well, I personally wouldn't want anyone to be able to say like
you're biased or impartial.
Biased or impartial, like, you know what I mean? It'd be like going over to, like, you know, to use your example earlier of like, if you went to like the Grand Master of the KKK and he was like, it's just the blacks are crap, like I hate them, and you know, I mean, like, I know you may not have a lot of black people over where you are, but see the ones we have, they're terrible, and you're like, he sounds like a reasonable guy, like, you know what I mean? Just he's been real charming and charismatic and all, and you know, like, you don't want to leave that one-sided sort of a thing, like, but like.
Right, well, let's figure this out.
Okay.
We'll use it. Let's
come back next week for Israel Palestine.
Let's draft up a template for Northern Ireland. An
acceptable way to explain to
Northern Ireland to people who haven't been there. So where do we start?
I reckon the 1916 Rising.
Yeah,
is a good beginner, because I mean, like, you can probably cover like the general madness of the previous 300 years by kind of landing there where it led up to.
I think we can say the first 700 years. We'll just say, listen, you don't really need to know much about that time, apart from the Brits were at it
They were at the usual
as
crack.
usual.
No, not to say, to be fair and balanced. A lot of Irish rogues out there as well. Probably causing a ruckus.
Probably not making things very easy for them.
Doing things like trying to get their land back and just trying to stop all the murder and the pillaging and the rapes. But, you know,
So
fair and balanced.
So how much do we spend?
We're
on this?
nailing our unbiased.
How much do we spend
Right off the bat.
in the Civil War period?
You mean like the early
Anglo-
1900s
yeah.
kind of area?
Because that's where I slip up now. I go, now at this point I'm going to ask you to slip on your Blu-ray of The Wind That Shakes the Barley and come back to me with what you know in an hour and a half, and I'll tell you if you're right or not. Now, I have to say, Ken Loach is English and he made that film, but I think, I don't know if that muddies the waters or not, but
yeah.
I tell you what, you do the report and
Or
come
if
back
it
to me.
bolsters our point
Yeah,
of view. Even an English guy gets it.
Try not to get distracted by how gorgeous Cillian Murphy is, because that's what happened to me. That's why I don't know anything about it.
Just kept trying to fucking imagine if you had his cheekbones.
God, he's such a ride. He's so good looking, that man. Like,
He is, yeah.
but he has that
Cork
kind
knows
of.
how to make him, you know
He
what I mean?
has that kind of ambivalent, those ambivalent features where he could play a real villain or a real hero.
Or a
like,
sexy woman.
yeah, I've seen him play a sexy
Yeah,
woman.
we all have.
Yeah,
Great show.
Yeah.
Great show. Apparently it's actually quite difficult to get breakfast on Pluto, but
it's not even a fucking planet anymore.
no.
Phased out,
How to get
ghosted,
gas.
ghosted by the entire
Just
solar
gas,
system.
actually, apparently, which is crap, but which is gas, isn't it? But yeah, I suppose you'd say Ireland was under British rule up until, well, I mean, officially it was like 1921 or something, like the entire country. Basically, the Irish were, this is as far as I
By
know.
the way, it's funny because I know that people well versed in who studied history at like
Listen
a
to this podcast.
university level listen to this podcast. Well, they probably don't anymore.
So yeah. Well, we'll find out. This is my recollection of what we were taught in history. For World War One. So there was like, it was coming up to like a time where like I think England had essentially promised to give Ireland back or something like that, or like
And Paul McCartney hadn't even demanded it via
Nah,
song yet.
Not at all. It was early doors, like, but and so then a lot of Irish people fought on the side of the English in World War One with the kind of the expectation of like, you know, that was kind
Do
of
your bit,
doing their bit,
get your bit back.
getting your bit back, and then basically the English were like, nah, actually, and hung on to the place.
And good enough for them because the whole time the Irish had also been smuggling guns in from Germany.
It's true.
So it's
Yeah.
good. It
Yeah,
was fucking.
we were playing both sides, to
Yeah.
be fair to us. Now this is where we are not the cleanest of slates, you know. Yeah, and then so like the rising obviously was like an attempt to.
failed attempt.
It was a failed attempt to capitalize on how the British government obviously were concentrating more on
The war.
and so they probably saw that as an opportunity to be like, oh, this is our moment, while all their troops are probably
Set up the gazebo in the back garden so when they come back.
And so as Darrow O'Brien once put it in one of his specials, our greatest military achievement, we held onto a post office for a few hours. And anybody that was caught was rounded up by the British Army and murdered, except for Eamon de Valera wasn't, because he was an American citizen. So he got away with it or something. I'm sure I'm getting all this wrong. This is great.
I don't know.
And then
He wasn't in the GPO.
no, he was, and then fucking Big Bird from Sesame Street was actually. Just as I started bringing up De Valera, I was like, I'm wrong.
I'm out of a depth.
I'm so out of my depth. Like, I understand that.
Let's keep going. Let's just keep going.
Let's keep going. Let's just get it wrong.
We're out of our depth
Yeah,
here,
we're
right?
out of
So
our depth.
the revolution failed. Then there was a period of a civil war for those that were pro-treaty and anti-treaty.
Yes, and so they were separate factions of Sinn Féin, right? So Sinn Féin had a fracture where there ended up being the pro-treaty group and the anti-treaty group, and that is what formed Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael. So they were both from Sinn Féin.
Is that true? I did not know that.
Fine Gael were I'm pretty sure were the pro-treaty party, and Fianna Fáil were the anti-treaty party, but they both stemmed from the original, like, 1900s, 1920s Sinn Féin.
And all the while...
And Sinn Féin, I think... I wonder, I actually don't know. Was there still like a core Sinn Féin who I guess just didn't know what they felt about the treaty? And they were like,
we're still pretty racked from the GPO. We lost a lot of good men. Big Bird went down in a hail of bullets.
Just the boy popping out of the trash can. One bullet.
One. It's not the fucking Count Dracula that lives in the trash can.
I don't know. I can't remember.
It's the other boy.
Yeah, I was mixing my metaphors. Are you saying
everybody knows Count Dracula is a Brit?
Are you saying you were like, we were nailing this so far? But you gotta get your Sesame Street references, because it wasn't the fucking guy from the trash can that was at the GPO. It was the vampire. Anyway.
Now, all the while this is happening up north, the 6 counties up north, after the War of Independence and Ireland becomes its own country, with the little footnote that the 6 counties of the 9 counties of Ulster remain under British rule, and that was where there was a large Protestant community and
because originally they would have had seeds of like kind of like hundreds of years ago, a lot of like Scottish, I believe, like kind of Ulster Scottish, what are now Ulster Scottish
Scottish planters,
settled, obviously I guess because it was the closest to Scotland, so that's probably why that happened, and then lived for hundreds of years,
and everything was brilliant in Ireland for about 40 years.
Yeah, we were doing really well.
We're doing really well.
Fine Gael, well, what is now Fine Gael, basically signed the treaty kind of against the will of like a lot of folks apparently, and that's why there was like such a kind of a split in Irish government, and what led to the...
Anyway, I think we've milked this.
And then fast forward about 40 years to when the beginning of the Troubles, about the 60s.
And by that stage, the Catholic minority in Northern Ireland had essentially become a second class. They become second class citizens. Second class. They were being bumped on like social housing, for jobs, for everything. It was just discrimination across the board. So Catholics, what was a lot, big student movement began, kind of inspired by the civil rights marches in America, began organising kind of civil rights protests, and they organised a march from Belfast to Derry for, I think it might have been over housing. So there's things like, a Catholic family of 10 would get pipped to the post for social housing for like a single Protestant, like a single person, one income, one job, one person household. Mm-hmm. They would get the jump on them for the housing. So this was the sort of stuff. So they went, the civil rights marches then were kind of attacked by... It's weird how I don't know. I guess at that stage, you might like Reverend Ian Paisley had whipped up like young Protestant I don't know, loyalists at the time in their frenzy, basically saying that the civil rights marches were like a front for the IRA, and the IRA were reassembling and mobilising again. So the civil rights marches get attacked, people get badly hurt, and it's just the violence begins to escalate.
And it's Bloody Sunday would have been around.
That was a few years after. So the British Army were essentially first brought in, and they were actually received favourably by the Catholic population because they were there to keep the peace for a while. And things soon degraded, and the rest is very depressing history of murder and violence, needless murder.
And bombs. As you can tell from our retelling of it there, both sides. Right?
Yeah. Big Bird and Count Dracula.
Yeah. Both sides. Clearly, both at fault.
Everybody is always at fault. Everyone is always wrong. Except you, I find you're very not often wrong.
I'm most often correct.
Yeah.
Even when I'm wrong, I'm right. Yeah. Like even just all the things I said there, I don't know if any of that's true.
Me neither.
But I said it really convincingly, didn't I?
So you know what annoys me the most? I've read loads of books about this, but just fail to retain all the information.
Yeah. I feel like that happens with me now with like even TV shows I'm watching. Like I am constantly blown away at the idea, which I was alive for, but can't remember. Like,
Margaret, did you know they hit the Twin Towers?
when was that?
Were you not going to tell me?
But like, I'm watching Homeland at the minute, right? And I'll binge like 3 or 4 episodes or something, say, and then I'll leave it like 2 days, and I'm like, what the fuck is happening? How did people wait a week? How did people wait a full fucking week?
It's true. I'm watching Lost, and
you're lost.
Yeah.
Do you know what? Also, I started doing. So we would watch The Handmaid's Tale, and now the new season is up on. I think it's like Channel 4's 1 or 4OD or something. I think it's called. All 4. But there's ads, like where ad breaks would be if it was on TV on the catch-up thing. What the fucking? Oh my god! I haven't watched something with ads, and I mean, there'd be ads at the start of like a YouTube video or something. But Jesus Christ, how do people? I said to Mark, I was like, I'm gonna wait the 1.5 years it takes for this to come onto Amazon. I'm not watching this shit. I can't fucking do it. Like
Foxy Bingo, I'm so sick of that fucking fox.
Seriously, like, oh my fucking god, like it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
Come here, any ads in the show with the guy with the massive cock?
The massive cock. I don't think that's even come out yet.
Oh, this won't have you.
Well, this will be. No, that was on Netflix. Like, so.
Oh yeah. Did you finish it?
No, I haven't.
No.
Did you start it?
No. I actually forgot all about it until right this moment.
Yeah, I'm
too busy reading my book about psilocybin and.
Oh, how's that going?
It's man, everybody comes in the house and like, any interest in taking mushrooms, going on a trip,
turning into a regular Joe Rogan over here.
This book is it's really interesting. It's honest to God, like it's properly convincing.
Yeah.
But this was a whole area of research this was like LSD as a therapeutic thing was, I guess you would say a therapeutic thing as
wasn't originally tried as like a mind control drug by
MK Ultra in the 60s. By the CIA. They were covertly dosing civilians and their own staff members and running tests to see whether or not that they could control people. They could get people to do something but on their bidding while dosing acid, like making sure they're suggestible enough and this sort of shit. But in the 50s it was used to treat alcoholism, near end of life anxiety. Apparently it's a massive fucking
I can imagine so.
Yeah,
I can imagine so.
But it was really popular and really
there's an episode of Joe Rogan's podcast where he has a mycologist who is the study of mushrooms.
Yeah, it is.
A guy called Paul Stamets. He's been on twice. Watch the first one. It is one of the most incredible interviews I have ever. It's just fascinating.
Yeah, this book is so fascinating.
It's so good. He was the only one in America that had a license from the what's the fucking drug one in America again?
The FDA?
Not the FDA.
No.
I don't. Anyway, the DEA. The Drug Enforcement Agency. He was the only one in America that had a license from the DEA to study the effects of psilocybin. But then the FBI were like actively always trying to catch him out selling it because they were convinced that he was just using that license to sell what he had. And some of the stories he has about like just like randomly there'll just be like an FBI helicopter above his house and like fucking like constantly having like informants trying to fucking ring him and like fucking meet up with him to fucking try and buy mushrooms off him constantly. It's unbelievable.
Why would you give someone the license just to try and like?
Well, they weren't the ones that gave.
That's entrapment.
They weren't the ones that gave him the license. They weren't the ones that gave him the license.
Yeah, okay, gotcha.
But they just knew that he had one and were convinced that he must be selling. But he also, that's only a tiny bit. But he talks an awful lot about like the positive. He talks about how psilocybin mushrooms might be the key to treating the main problem which is causing honeybees to die off. It's like a kind of like a something wrong with their wings, where like they can get this like disease that like affects their ability to fly or something. And they found like that if they treated them with like psilocybin, that it just fucking cured them, and it's fascinating.
Yeah, it's. I'm telling you, this
the
book,
whole area. It's actually like a really exciting time because like they're only really starting.
they're coming. That's the thing.
to
Like
be allowed to
it
study
lay
a lot of that.
the research lay dormant. It kind of got shut down.
Yeah.
Well, I think one of the reasons it got shut down is because it became associated with the 60s day-glow counterculture of peace and love. But
Yeah.
the reason why that was a bad thing was because people were taking acid, having these metaphysical, spiritual, transcendental moments. And then they're like, right, do you fancy going to war in Vietnam as well? And they're like, oh my fuck. Like,
Yeah,
you know, so
yeah.
it was having an impact on
Yeah.
America's fucking
Main goal.
main goal, which is all to destroy everything.
Yeah.
So the studies lay dormant for so long, but they were like the results are insane. Like
For PTSD, it's supposed
for
to be
PTSD, for
incredible.
alcoholism, for anxiety, for any manner of things. Like,
Yeah.
do you want to do them?
Yeah.
I would.
I would love to microdose.
Well, the book always talks about set and setting as well. So two things that are important is the setting in which you choose to do them and the mindset that you go into them. So like preparation is key.
Yeah,
really.
yeah.
Like, but
Aye.
like I've done them before, and I thought
Going
they
to be
were-
an old shaman knocking around the east somewhere.
Well, I think you're looking at them.
But yeah,
I've done them before, and they were fucking. It was brilliant. Like,
yeah,
but probably not the. I had a great time. Probably not the best setting to be doing them in. Like,
Yeah,
and I think I could probably have an even more.
I just feel like after my experience with having loads of panic attacks, smoking weed, that like I don't know if I'd be mentally ready to kind of go into an environment where I know something's going to happen to me. You know what I mean?
Well, read this book, and I'll
Yeah.
be your guide. I'm telling you, I'm. Fucking,
I would like 100%. Like there's that guy was talking about like Paul Stamets was talking about like he like microdoses like just tiny amounts of psilocybin every day. Like and
it's very popular in Silicon Valley. That amongst
yeah. So I hear
developers.
Yeah. But yeah, just like it's a really interesting kind of field, as you say. That's kind of only really starting to kind of get a kind of a reinvigorated from kind of it, I guess, being more kind of acceptable kind of socially to
A lot
kind
of
of
the
be
science,
doing
like even
that
they've
sort of stuff.
a lot of like people that this book talks about. It's like coming from the science.
What's the book called, by the way?
How to Change Your Mind: The New Science of Psychedelics.
Class.
They talk about how people who are kind of logic driven and coming from a scientific background, also kind of reporting the same experiences, this sense of like the death of the ego and the like a sense of accessing the collective unconscious, which really like, which suggests then that the consciousness doesn't exist solely in the brain. Consciousness is like channeled into the brain, which I find really fucking fascinating. Like it just fucking blows my mind. And the fact that it comes from mushrooms, like a fungus that just grows naturally in the ground. And
Do you know that the biggest living organism on the planet is a mushroom?
Really?
It's 20-something acres.
We should be worshipping.
It's 20-something acres big. One mushroom.
Another thing
Incredible.
about these mushrooms, these psychedelic mushrooms, they reckon that it is just these experiences are the root of all religion.
Yes, that is something that has become, like, from listening to podcasts with people who have talked about like their
Duncan
experience.
Trussell.
Duncan Trussell for sure. Yeah. Whoa, man!
I love his voice.
His podcast is amazing. Actually, his podcast is incredible, man.
Yeah.
Because throughout the course of doing his podcast, he got cancer, and then he does an episode like with his like he does a couple episodes with his mother, like when she's dying as well, and it's like some fucking incredible conversations. Like, but yes, he's also a massive fan of drugs, of the psychedelic nature, and yeah, he's got one of the fucking best.
He has one of the
most,
greatest voices, I think.
Joy-inspiring
Yeah.
voices. But yeah,
Yeah, so that's where I'm at. That's what has been occupying my head recently, is like a quest for
mushies.
well,
On the quest for mushies.
Don't say it like that.
It's the follow up to John Mayer's album 2 years ago, the Quest for Everything. Mick McCullough, the Quest for Moist.
Just on that as well, another book that I would recommend is the Electric Kool-Aid Acid Test by who's it by now? Can't even mind his name. But it's a book about Ken Kesey. I think he wrote One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. He's a big figure in the kind of acid movement of the 60s. It's a mental book, but it's worth a read if this field of study interests you.
It does actually. I would definitely recommend that episode of that podcast.
Oh, well, send me a link.
I'll send you a link. Paul Stamets. He's been on twice. The second one, he was like promoting a movie or something that he made about it, but it's more interesting to listen to the first one.
Tell me, would you do them in the comfort and solace of a dear friend that you would trust to make sure that you were having a good time?
Yeah, if you could find me someone. I know what he's doing. I can barely trust you to read the instructions on the fucking coffee. Are you fucking serious? Are you fucking serious?
How much did you put in? I don't know.
Just a clue. He's like, here, take a few days. Those are the kinds of things that actually do make me hesitant. Though, is like I want, and that's why I think like it should be controlled and regulated, because like then you know what you're getting. You know what I mean? Like, but like, there's I mean, obviously, with like mushrooms, like you just pick them. But again, like, I am not an expert forager.
Yeah, no, I'm not either. I know the mushrooms I picked them off a fucking rack in the shop in Amsterdam.
But at least they are probably go through. I don't know. Do they even go through like some form of regulation to be sold in those shops?
I didn't ask the fella.
Good man. Yeah, and he wants me to trust him.
Obviously, if I had somebody else, I was responsible for somebody else, I'd be doing my research.
How would you do the research now on the mushrooms that you find?
Well, I'm reading this book for a start. I'm not going to go out foraging on my own.
I call it MD.
I wouldn't go out foraging on my own. I would have an experienced picker, or I would. There's other ways of getting them.
Yeah.
But and I yeah, and I would make sure, your settings are all right for you.
This is all for entertainment purposes, by the way. The police, hello.
Yeah, obviously, yeah. You know, I'm saying if in a perfect world where this was legal,
I wouldn't even want them to be legal at all. I think the laws are great.
I'll get it. I'll shut up about it now.
I don't think there's any police listening to this.
I was actually thinking that when you were chatting about cops earlier. I was like, I wonder, is there any cops listening to this, and will they ever stop?
I won't. Would you stop? Oh, come on. Now stop, would you know? But yeah. No, it would be super interesting.
So if anybody else is interested in that field of study, I would love to hear from you.
Listen to him trying to legitimize this field of study.
I'm reading a book by a scientist. That means it's a field of study.
Yeah, there's a couple of episodes on Sam Harris's podcast where he talks about experiences with that kind of stuff as well, and it does make me think that it is the root of most religion, like for sure.
I think
I knew there was something you said I wanted to come back to.
A phrase that stuck me was like, "This is the way the universe is trying to. This is the way of the universe communicates with us.
Mm-hmm.
Like nature communicates us through these trips or whatever." And they're like, and we should be making a more active effort to listen. Really.
Yeah. Definitely, like, I mean, like, even, and I know it's like a kind of a meme in and of itself now, like, but, like, you know, like, I haven't really listened to him now in a long time, but like Joe Rogan, like, always on about like DMT, like even that as a molecule or whatever the fuck it is, that like is basically meant to be like a synthesis of like the kind of hormone or whatever, like that your brain releases, like
when you die
in the moment of your death. Like, I mean, that's fascinating stuff, man. Like, and like the likes of like ayahuascas and all this kind of stuff.
People
to imagine the people that thousands of years ago, that the people who wrote the Bible, I think it was the Coen brothers. Sorry, but like
another theory.
To imagine that they weren't. To imagine that isn't it the stoned ape theory or something?
Yeah, that's the stoned ape theory is humans basically leapfrogged, fucking like their brains exploded when they ate these mushrooms,
There's
and
an idea, like that's why we have consciousness or something.
and
Isn't it?
language was we were able to develop language, and it really just propelled the human race forward. Which is
That's why you don't see a lot of smart deers about the place. Not a fan of the mushrooms.
smart deers. Yeah,
Smart deers.
really nailed it. Did
But-
I ever tell you about that? I don't know. I probably didn't speak about that time in Amsterdam.
I don't think. Well, it's not ringing a bell. No.
No.
You wouldn't have been a fan now of admitting you were after taking drugs for a while.
It's not even that. It's just I don't mind it. I had other.
Oh, I know
hang-ups about it.
you'll tell me off the mic. Like I just mean like normally when we were recording, you'd be like,
Yeah. Well, you know,
which is fair.
I don't know what the fuck my hesitance was like, but yeah, that was a great time. I mean,
Do your folks know that you've done this?
I mean,
How do you feel like you would deal? Not to say that there's anything to be issue. Like I genuinely think anybody
care.
who's like adversely against this kind of stuff doesn't really understand it. To be
yeah, I
honest.
don't care. I don't care if my parents know. I mean, they know my enjoyment of other things.
Stag parties for one. What do they think goes on?
Football. So I know. I mean, they definitely know. I mean, my dad one time when my uncle Sean last year or 2 years ago died, and he was being waked in our house. They were organising getting all to carry the coffin in, and my dad was like getting everybody, and he passed me and goes to my wee 18-year-old cousin's new boyfriend, who's only been in he's not even in the family, and goes, here, you. I was like, I'm right here. He was like, are you probably stoned? That's what he said to me. And I wasn't even.
There's nothing worse than being out masculined by just a child. You know, like I've been in that. I think I told you that story once, didn't I, about going around to help Margaret's dad with something, and then they were like, nah, you're grand. And then just like their little nephew who's like 16.
Is this when you went round in the cons?
Yeah, built like a brick shit house, and I just like, do you want tea or? Yeah. Yeah, well, you're not missing out much, Mick. It's not really much crack carrying a dead body.
I've carried me plenty of dead bodies. I wasn't even that close to Sean.
Not even always at funerals.
Which reminds me, have you watched I Think You Should Leave yet?
Oh, I saw that there was a new season of it.
Yeah.
I haven't really. I've been just finishing. I'm trying to clear my plate of the things I'm in the middle of, so I still need to watch Inside the Bo Burnham one. And I saw that's on my list now as well.
You've watched the first season, haven't you?
I didn't watch all of it.
Yeah.
I watched like the odd episode.
Yeah.
I kept putting it on in the company of people who just really didn't appreciate it.
It's not the fucking.
It was annoying. Like sometimes when you like think you know someone's sense of humor, is there anything worse than watching something with someone who just like deathly thinks something isn't funny that you think is funny? Doesn't it ruin it for you?
Yeah, it does ruin it.
You're
a
just
bit.
like, would you? Well, just fuck off. Then why are we even friends?
I know.
Dad.
I gave up trying I always try to recommend things to my family thinking they might like it, and they never ever do.
My brother Adam hated, and I mean hated, Anchorman. I was like, but it's just a bit of crack, like. He was like, it's just stupid. And I was just like, that's why it's good. And it's just like, I couldn't believe it. But to be fair now, in hindsight, like his point was basically just that like Will Ferrell is just the same thing in everything he's ever in, and I can concede that now after
but it's
watching.
fun.
But it is fun, you know. It's the same way, like, my mum used to hate Jim Carrey because she was like, he's just the same in everything. But I was like, yeah, but it's fun. Like, it's...
Yeah, I don't know if Jim Carrey is the same in everything. I wouldn't agree with that.
I don't think
he was so fucking huge. Like, he was probably the most famous person in the world at one stage.
I still absolutely think that Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind is one of the most heartbreaking things I've ever watched in my life.
Truman Show is one of my favourite films. I fucking love it.
He's got levels, man.
And then he went off the deep end there for a while. He seemed like he took some DMT
He
and
did. He did.
started painting and got... But when you're that famous...
Started painting.
But when you're that famous...
There was all the hallmarks.
Where do you...
He grew a beard. He was probably on drugs. I think he started painting. Said with no irony in a building literally run. You You should have a corridor of the vault just called the deep end, and just put all the painters in there.
Did I tell you that corner? This side's called the Thandie Newton wing.
Yes, you told me that. Yeah.
Because you're rewatching Line of Duty.
I'm
now.
watching that. That's
Or watching it rather.
Sorry, you said I think you should leave by. Is it Tim or Tom Robinson?
Tim Robinson.
Tim Robinson. It is a fucking.
The coffin chat got me. Anybody who's watched it will know. But
from season 1, the has that ever happened to you, legal
it's a coffin prop is the natural successor. It's
that
not. Yeah.
is honestly like one of the fucking fun, or else the
guy
it's like the walk the line kind of gag about like the fucking base. Like just make something up.
That's Orla's favorite. Something that makes me so happy is how much Orla loves I Think You Should Leave. It really makes me happy. Like
Margaret 100% hates that show. Like 100% hates that show so much. Margaret isn't the kind of person like if Margaret's watching something, and I know contrary to nearly everything I've ever said about watching something that Margaret's picked on TV before, if she's watching something, I do try my best. I might make a couple of comments initially, but I will go, this isn't for me, she's enjoying it, whatever. The odd time I might just like be unable to contain laughter at how ridiculous something is, but that's no, maybe after I might try ruin it for her, but while she's watching it I leave it alone. Margaret will like, and my mum is the same as well. She'll just like my mum in the middle of like a room full of laughter will just be like, why is this funny? And you're just like, because well, I don't want to have to explain the joke. She's like, I just don't get it, like why is this funny, like, and you're just like, oh fuck off then, you fucking give birth to me or something.
My ma bottle of wine and the other night, my ma, I guess she's wild chatty and just loves talking when she's had a wee drink and you know who I love, who I would love to go see, and I was like, no, she's like, Peter Kay. And I was like, I haven't heard of Peter Kay in about 15 years.
Is he still doing things?
Yeah.
Is he really?
Well, I don't know. But she, according to Mags, a bottle of wine and on the roof, she was, that's who, all she wanted to do was go and see a Peter Kay.
Super accessible.
And then she started talking about some of his bits, and I was like, dead sober, just listening to my mad, a bottle of wine deep, talk about Peter Kay bits rather than even perform them. It was a long 5 minutes.
Yeah. It's
I
fascinating.
do love me ma though.
It's fascinating.
She's a great woman.
I'm sure she is. She made you.
Thank you.
Oh, that came out nicer than I meant.
No, it did.
Damn it! I'll get you next week.
It came out real nice.
It came out real nice. I'm really annoyed about it. It's really off color for me. But it's funny. I have found it interesting over the last fucking 5-10 years or whatever, just like of having rewatched or just like revisited like stuff that I remember like rolling around the floor laughing at, like Lee Evans. I remember when I was like 12, I just thought that was the fucking funniest thing ever. Like I would dare say it's one of the reasons that I have such an interest in stand-up now. Like I used to just like, there was like 3 that Comedy Central just had on rotation all the time. There was like the Wembley one, I don't know, and the 2 other ones that he sweats a lot in.
He sweats so much on stage.
Turn the lights down. Jesus Christ, like give the man a chance. But anyway, and just like I could watch them over and over and over again, and I was like laughing. I'm sure I remember my dad being like, "Why are we watching this again? It's not like music. Like you know what he's going to say. How is it funny? Like fair point." But and then like not watching Lee Evans for fucking whatever 10 years, and then like on our like TV package now we have Comedy Central again. I think it just fucking randomly was on one night. It was like, fuck, I used to love that. Click that. I was like, this is not funny. Like,
well, comedy ages like milk as well, though.
But like a lot of his stuff was like general day to day, like my wife says this and isn't she mad sort of stuff. You know what I mean? And just like I'm trying to think back of me being like 12 going like,
my wife does say that.
This guy's wives, huh? What are they like? I relate. You know, like what was I getting from this?
Folding your fucking washing, having your smoke and your cigarette. Like,
exactly. Fucking doing my maths homework.
Wish I had a wife to do this, listening to John Mayer, Nora Jones. Life's tough. Gonna crack a cold one later and sit down with some Lee Evans.
Might get a good Capri Sun for myself later on. But yeah, and like Peter Kay would have been another one like that. Like, wouldn't have even really been one of my favorite, but like my ma also like loved him. Like, it probably still does. I remember just like, I would be one now, to be fair, that if everyone else in the room is dying laughing at something, like, I will find it funnier.
I mean, things are. It's better to, especially I think fun like comedy things is definitely better to watch with a group of people. Although I'm happy enough sit and watch shit by myself. But
Yeah, I just feel like I laugh different when there's nobody around. It's more of like a when I'm on my own. You know, it's just like a
that's great. That's great.
jazz clap. I remember in our school years ago, they brought there's like every year in Cork there's the Cork Jazz Weekend. It's like a big thing in the city, and so like when we were in maybe fourth year or something, I remember like they brought like a jazz band in, and basically like we were kind of it was like a kind of like an impromptu sort of a kind of quick assembly sort of a vibe, and then it was just basically it's a really good jazz band, like fucking would kind of explain jazz to us, you know, like how to enjoy jazz as a punter. Rule of one, shut the fuck up. We were like, I'm already out. But I remember they were like on about like when a player takes a solo, it's like good etiquette to applaud after a solo or whatever. And I was like, is that how everybody was applauding in these jazz clubs? Just somebody came to them, did a workshop when they were 16, just going, you must clap now at the end of these, like was it ever natural? but and I remember they were like, and this is like a jazz clap. And I remember we all did it. We were just like, you can't hear it.
So it's a hashtag now.
It's a hashtag.
Hashtag great solo.
Hashtag great solo. but yeah, and just being like, would you not just prefer a regular applause? Like, couldn't fucking understand that at all. It was just like, can you imagine? Just like,
well, you don't want to throw off the timing with all your,
you're fucking happy,
you know.
But one of these, yeah. But hashtag great solo. Fuck's sake. But yeah, and just like we loads of those fucking random things. Like the thought now of going like, we'll go into these schools and tell these kids early how to enjoy jazz.
Did you ever get the ones coming around the school that kind of you go to the semi hall and there'd be a performance troupe would come and
yes
about the dangers of alcohol?
There's one I really remember from primary school, and it was I know thinking back on it, I don't know if the guy was Indian, but he was definitely playing like an Indian legally safe version of Superman called G Per Man. And it was kind of, looking back now, it was a bit racist. And maybe I think he was Indian. I can't remember now. Anyway, that's not important. I can't remember what the crux of the story even was. Like, it was basically just like a poor episode of Superman just in our school hall. Nobody could fly. And
this was to tell you not to do drugs?
I don't even know. I actually can't remember what it was. Like, I just remember like that it was.
And why did you bring it up again?
Just you said, did you ever have these performance troops that used to come around? And I said yes, and that's when I remember. Is that not how conversation works?
Yeah, well, I thought you'd have more to fucking contribute. I don't know what the story was or what was going on.
I just remember.
You sound like me.
I just remember it was like legally safe Superman. It was just.
Oh, legally safe. I didn't know what the fuck you were talking. Hold on, what do you mean?
Like copyright wise?
Oh, I thought you meant this person was here to perform and show you how to.
No, it was like fucking if you bought Superman in Aldi or something, you know, they weren't allowed to call it Superman. They were like,
but why were they there? What?
They were like a performance troupe, and we were like 11.
Did
and
they have
like,
a message?
Probably.
Yeah, that's.
But it was lost on me. Sure, I didn't know what Toy Story was about.
Don't copyright. Don't infringe on copyright material. You wouldn't steal a car.
I mean, I didn't get the message of half the Pixar movies I watched until I was about 22.
Oh, I actually watched a thing yesterday about the initial kind of iteration of Woody. He was a fucking cunt.
Is that right?
You can watch videos of like, it's, you know, like the kind of sketch animations before, like the storyboards. They have storyboards, voiceover, and it's Tom Hanks doing the voice of Woody.
Just like early reads.
And he's apparently Pixar saw this and shut it down for a bit until they could. Until they fix it. A bit more child-friendly. Yeah. But Woody was just a complete ball bag. He fucked Buzz Lightyear out the window out of sheer malice.
Just to prove he couldn't fly.
Whereas in the one that got released, it's the rain.
Is there a fucking river in here?
It's the rain.
Oh yeah.
And the pipes. So he accidentally knocks him out in the, I think in the actual film, but he throws him out, and he's like an authoritarian leader. So he's giving off to all the other toys, and he's screaming at them. I was like, I'm so glad they fucking changed Toy Story. Could you
I'm
imagine
not.
this?
That sounds like it would have been incredible.
It sounds like Christopher Nolan's Toy Story.
Directed by Michael Bay.
This bedroom needs a hero.
There's a snake in my boots. Christian Bale.